So I had a great time at the C3 event for the Synod. The first workshop that I went to was called Faith Factors That Can Last Past High School. And it actually ended up being what I feel is my most helpful class of workshop of the day. But one of the pieces that I took away from that class was that there are three key questions that we ask our whole lives through. And one of those, the first question is, who am I? Like, how do I identify myself, right? So throughout our lives, that changes. When kids are little, they're figuring out their friend groups. When we're older, we're figuring out our families. And then when our families are no longer there, we're yet again figuring out who we are. The second question is, whose am I? Like, where do I belong? Finding a fit. And the third question is, do I matter? What's my purpose here? And I'm hoping at Bethlehem that we can use some of those questions coming this fall and maybe next year too, looking at the ministry that we do and helping people answer those questions so that everyone finds a fit.
I'm Glenn Nelson. Two of the sessions I attended were, one was Lutheran Services of Iowa, the Immigration and Refugee Community Services has just opened a center in Waterloo serving the Cedar Valley, and it's an excellent opportunity for individuals or congregations to consider how they can help refugees and immigrants settling in our area. The second one was information for churches considering going solar. Now is a good time to consider going solar for our church. The funding opportunities are in the Inflation Reduction Act and would help us make that move if we so chose. If you have any questions, just look me up and ask away.
The first session I attended was led by Pastor John Sheehy of Roland, Iowa. In 2022, as America announced that all Americans should leave Ukraine because of the war, he and another pastor entered into Ukraine on a mission trip to train people how to deal with the stress of moral trauma. That is, to in a situation, particularly in wars, where there are limited resources and people have to make life and death decisions based on their limited supply and access to resources.
Lisa Nelson here, and I also attended the Creative Collaborative Congregations Ministry Fair. And two of the sessions that I attended that I wanted to just mention were, one was called Qualities of an Effective Leader, and it was put on by the Youth Ministry Consultants organization that our Synod actually has an arrangement with them that allows us to access a lot of the resources that they provide online for training and helping churches in youth ministry. So I thought that that was a really important point. And there's a code that we can use to access the things that they have available on their website to help us with youth ministry. I liked his definition of leadership because I do think that we're all leaders. Just depends on the situation. His definition was the right kind of people doing the right kind of stuff for the right reasons. So I think everybody leads somebody, but also that everyone leads differently. So there were a lot of good points made in that session. And if you have any questions, let me know. The other one that I wanted to mention was one that was presented by our Synod staff. It was about a lay training program that they're calling Synod Authorized Ministry, or SAMS. They're working with the Southeastern Iowa Synod, the Western Iowa Synod, and the South Central Wisconsin Synod to work collaboratively to create a training program using some existing lay schools for people to attend, and I think it's a 2-year program commitment. And the idea is that then those Synod authorized ministers, the SAMs, would be able to serve in congregations that are unable to call a full-time ordained minister of word and sacrament. These SAMs would be authorized by the Synod to do the sacraments in that particular context. So they would have limitations on what they could do, but they could serve in their own home congregations. And then, it's a way to address some of the shortages that exist in terms of pastoral ministry, but also to lift up some leaders who maybe are not in a position to attend seminary full-time, but would certainly be assets to their congregations. So sounds like some exciting things the Synod is involved in. And if, again, you have questions, just let me know.
The second workshop that I went to was called The Messy Reality of Ministry with Parents. And it reminded us that parents and families these days are truly messy. They're busy, they're pulled in 27,000 different directions, and it's just a struggle sometimes to do ministry with them. And the beauty of that is that we can rely on the grace of God to do ministry with our parents. It also reminded us about that we are all of us in the congregation, called to be adults that care, which stands for adults who are Christ-centered, available, real, and encouraging. So I'm hopeful that we can, as we move forward in ministry together, be adults that care for all of the kids that walk through our doors, and even the ones who only pop in once a year. So let's think about that. How can we be adults who are Christ-centered, available, real, and encouraging to our kids? The third workshop I attended, I was actually in there with Reg, was Art as Spiritual Practice. And we enjoyed some time to be creative together. I personally have been spending a little bit more time trying to find time to do that in my schedule. I think as adults especially, we don't often stop and allow ourselves just kind of to play with art supplies and creative ways. We're creating a space at Bethlehem that might be available for people to do. So if that's something that you're interested in, let me know. But I encourage you, find some art supplies that you might have laying around your house from when your kids were little, or go out and treat yourself to some new art supplies and see if you can be creative. Read a Bible verse and just draw or paint or do whatever you want to do that lets the Spirit speak through your art.
Okay, Lutheran Services in Iowa presented on immigration services. A new immigration center is to be opened in Waterloo. There are also centers in Des Moines and Sioux City. They passed out information about their work and refugees in Iowa. They are partners with Global Refuge, formerly Lutheran Immigration Services, Immigration and Refugee Services. I attended because I had become aware that planned migration is seen as a mitigation to the problems of climate change and environmental conditions. Definitions of refugees do not include environmental issues and climate change at the present time.
In the second session I attended, sponsored by the Synod Racial Justice Network, we talked about Iowa's incarceration trends, particularly as it relates to racially minoritized people. For example, in Iowa, only 3% of the population is categorized as Black African American. Yet 16% of the people incarcerated in this state are from that racial group. Iowa, since 2010's incarceration rates overall, people have been the same. More than 45 states since 2010 have reduced the number of people incarcerated. Professor Al Hayes led the discussion on these trends and how to change them. He is co-chair of the Iowa Justice Advocacy Network.
Robin Keim, assisted by Reverend Glenn Burns, presented on campus ministry, specifically on the cooperative ministry of Three House, formerly the Wesley Foundation at UNI. 5 denominations are now associated with Three House: Methodist, Presbyterian, Church of Christ, Episcopalian, and Lutheran. Okay, the equipment from the coffee house at the Lutheran Student Center was brought to Three House. The goal of the Student Center is to provide a safe, welcoming place for everyone without regard to where or how they are in their spiritual journey.
The last class in the workshop that I went to at the C3 event was called Information for Churches Wanting to Go Solar. And I was interested in learning more about how that might be a possibility for us here at Bethlehem. We are blessed to have geothermal in our building already, but we still do have an electric bill that we pay every month, and we definitely have the space, at least, to look into having a solar array and how we might be able to even make our carbon footprint smaller. So stay tuned for more information about the possibility of doing that too. I hope next time that there's a C3 event that more of you can come. It's been a great experience and lots of learning that I look forward to taking into our future together.